Broadcasting live from Youngville, North Carolina and Ontario, Canada, this is Got Mead Live, a weekly show where Vicky Rowe and AJ Airmans bring you the Mead news, Meadery info, and mead-making discussions from all over, talking with mead makers, mead owners, industry mavens, and influencers. This is Got Mead Live, a weekly podcast about mead and the people who love it and where the mead world is going. And now here are your hosts, Got Mead owner Vicky Rowe and mead and wine maker AJ Airmans.
Live from all over everywhere, the Den of the Puppies of the Apocalypse, Melbourne down under, Ryan's Pad in Denver, the TARDIS in Miami, and the Bunny Pen in Ottawa, Canada. It's Got Mead Live. Welcome to the show. Tonight we've got a couple of people, actually. We've got Greg Heller-LaBelle, who is legislative chair for the AMMA, and so he's a guy that has talked to the government. And he's going to be doing a presentation at the AMMA conference about the TTB and how to do, how to work with the TTB, basically, because it can be, as many of you well know, a bit difficult sometimes. So he's going to kind of touch on some of that tonight and go way in depth at the conference. And then our other speaker tonight is somebody you all probably already know. She's been on the show before, Chrissie Manion Zaerpoor. She is the author of The Art of Mead Tasting and Food Pairing, which is pretty much a definitive book on pairing your meads with food, and as I just found out today, is in the running for a is it Beardsley Award? No, that's not right. Damn, no, I screwed it up.
Award.
Yeah. For the award, the James Beard Award. That's it, the James Beard Cookbook Award, which is pretty much like the holy grail of awards in cookbooks.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm going to be posting more to the Got Mead social media and site later. She just sent it to me this afternoon, and I haven't had a chance to do anything with it. But I was just like, holy crap, that's just amazing.
Well, maybe she'll talk about it later.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure we can convince her to do that. I don't think that'll be a problem. I mean, James Beard is like, oh my God. So all y'all out there who listen to us now, who listened to us before, who's downloaded us, been to the site, been on the forum, we do this in our own time and for free because, we're just totally awesome, but also because we're mead lovers. And, this is fun for us. We enjoy it. But the software, the hardware, the storage, that all costs hard money, actual cash money that I have to lay out every month. So, if you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're reading, if Got Mead has helped you, consider becoming a supporting patron member. It's only $30 a year, and you get access to the Got Mead forum patron groups, which has a whole bunch of award-winning recipes in there. I mean, we're talking like, Major Cup-winning recipes. Big shit here. And also get you into the patron Facebook group. And basically, you're looking at $30 a year, 50 cents a week, and you're helping to support Got Mead and all that Got Mead is trying to do here. So we hope that you'll consider doing that. It certainly helps us, and it'll probably help you, if you spend any time on Got Mead researching making mead. And I wanted to say thanks to the people who signed up last week and the week before that. We really appreciate it. We really do. I'm going to get through this intro stuff, then I'm going to let you guys talk. My voice is my throat closes up after a bit. I did say government, yes. I did it on purpose, too. So you can listen to us live on the Got Mead website, obviously, or if you're wanting to listen to it later, you can download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn, and just search Got Mead Live. Replays go back to the beginning of the show on all those places, as well as on gotmead.com as well. You can find us online at, of course, gotmead.com. And Facebook, our Facebook page is facebook.com/gotmead. Our group is facebook.com/groups/gotmead. Twitter is @gotmeadnow. Feel free to tweet us. I'm usually watching during the show, and I try to get to them as quick as I can. If you want to send us a question, just go put your mouse over the Got Mead Live radio show on gotmead.com, and there'll be a drop down there where you can send us questions. And of course, if you want to call in, and if Skype is behaving that day, which there's no guarantee of that with these new versions that they've got out, you can call in at 803-443-MEAD. That's 803-443-6323. Sounds like Hamish just got some background noise there. So, what are you drinking, AJ? AJ? Hello?
Oh. I hate
AJ,
Skype.
what's happened? Where are you?
Yeah, I don't know.
Skype.
We lost AJ there for a second, but she's back now. So what you
Yeah, it froze, so I couldn't unmute myself.
Oh,
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's round 2 of that lovely blackcurrant Malamel from Monroe's. I'm really enjoying this, and even my husband likes it.
You know you got it when the husband likes it.
And he doesn't really go for, a lot of meads and wines.
Yeah, John's pretty picky too. He basically just says, yeah, no, so I have to really be going on, oh my God, this is so amazing for him to even try it.
Well, my friend about trying stuff. It's just he doesn't like a lot of it. Like he's like, ooh, that's sour, ooh, that's bitter, or that's interesting. But this one he actually thought was good. So
that's nice. Current meads are good. Ooh, I got an email from a guy, and I'll have to send you the stuff on it. He's got a currant farm. Apparently, they just started allowing currant farms, and I believe he's in New York State. So he may not be all that far from you.
There was a big thing about blackcurrant a couple of years ago where they all got a disease, and it was something to do with pine trees, I think. And so blackcurrants have been rather unpopular in the States for a while, and they're only just starting to make a comeback, from what I understand. But I don't think he had the same problem here. As far as I know, it didn't come across the border. So whatever it was, I think needed slightly warmer climates.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, this guy said that that's basically what you said. He didn't go into details about disease, whatnot, but he said that they only just recently started allowing them, and I was just, he was emailing to see if he could advertise on Got Meat, and I was like, well, yeah, of course you can, so I'll have to dig up the email and send you over the info. I don't know how close he is to where you are.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always been interested in is how on earth do you harvest currants in some sensible manner?
Aren't they like on bushes?
Yeah, I've got a friend who's got a red currant tree, and it's taller than I am, but typically they're about 3 feet tall, maybe 5 feet tall. And you kind of have to strip them, they make little bunches like clusters like grapevines, but that's the size of your finger, and each one's the size of peas, so it takes a very long time to get a good number of them, and I don't know if there's any way of making that go faster without hurting the plant, so...
Yeah,
however, that's probably a topic for another episode.
Yeah. The chat is going on about Carvin's barbecues. Not surprisingly. Excuse me.
I thought Bobby was asking if Carvin could talk about making barbecue mead. I was thinking that's an interesting idea. I know there's been some mead. I wanted to know where he was coming from.
Yeah, no, I think it's just because Carvin keeps posting pictures of all this scrumptious barbecue on his feed, and
well, there's nothing saying we can't do some spin-off mead stuff.
Well, I think what we have maybe get Carvin on to talk about what barbecue to pair with which kinds of meats. That might be fun.
Okay.
Carvin
on barbecue and meat pairing.
I'm pretty sure Carvin could rise to the occasion for that. I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, how to collaborate with Chrissie.
How to make good barbecue that goes with your meat.
There you go, yeah.
Mm.
How to make great barbecue sauce that incorporates meat. All kinds of fun we can have with that.
I've always found that the things that paired best with mead were things that I put meat in while I was cooking.
Yeah, I like cooking with meat. I'll tell you what, you want to make some incredible gravy? Yeah. Throw some meat in there when you're thickening it. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
See, AJ, Chrissie will tell you, or will tell us probably today, that's when you're making associative flavors, or I forget the word she uses for it. But she also has high contrast flavors that go together. And that would be the trick, and that's the bit that I always have trouble with. Making two things similar enough that they go together works for me, but doing the whole compare and contrast and having them go together, that's where I struggle. So
then we'll ask her about that.
So I'm trying to get out of Chrissie's book anyway.
Yeah, well, we'll have to ask her about that. She's got so much material. There's no way it's all going to fit into one talk. So
yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring in Greg here, and we'll see what Greg has to tell us about the TT and B. So all y'all out there listening, here's your chance to ask all those questions that people are always asking. Yeah. I really hate how there he is. Hi, Greg.
How are you?
Pretty good. Welcome to Got Mead Live. You got me, AJ, and Hamish in Australia on, so I'm the only one in the United States right now.
What a geographically diverse call we've got. This is an awesome testament to technology.
Isn't it really?
Yeah.
You know, we got AJ in Canada and Hamish in Australia, and if Manny was on, he'd be in Florida, and if we had Ryan, we'd be in he'd be in Denver, so we'd be all over the map.
It is awesome.
It is, yeah. It's a bit of a job though with the time zone change, especially for Hamish, because it's tomorrow, middle of his workday for him.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, so I'm going to be a real big nerd for a second here. While a friend of mine was deployed in Afghanistan, we all decided to do something we hadn't done in about 10 years, which is get a Dungeons and Dragons game online. And so we had a guy in Seattle, a guy in Chicago. I was on the East Coast, and a dude in Afghanistan, all playing online this game we hadn't played in like 15 years.
Oh my God!
It really is a great world.
That's a total nerdy use of technology right there. I have to hand it to you. That's pretty damn nerdy.
I mean, if I can't drop that on a Mead podcast, you know, where can
I know, right? Well, especially since
I still play tabletop with dice and everything. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't played tabletop D&D for a while, but I get sucked into D&D style video games now and again, and I do play other board games that are just weird and strange. So.
Yeah, I mean the role any tabletop game, anything. It's like they've got all the rules in there, and all you need is internet access, and you can unite people from around the world to do complete waste of time.
Presuming your crap top will actually run the programs, because mine decided it didn't want to.
Yeah. Yeah,
we had some problems with the Afghanistan internet, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I imagine the Wi-Fi there is maybe just a little bit sketchy.
a little spotty.
Yeah.
Not surprising, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know when my daughter was in South Korea, which is, pretty technologically advanced, but she was in an army base, like, up by the DMZ, and, I mean, connectivity was terrible, she was telling me. Mm-hmm. Which drove her nuts. I mean, she's internet generation. She's never been in a world that didn't have an internet.
It's a weird concept for some of us, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when I'll take trips and drive around and go to different places, you can go through even big areas of America, it turns out, aren't that great at connectivity, and I'm just completely lost. Then it'll be awesome. Then I'll realize no one can get a hold of me, and I can just go to whatever, brewery, Meadery, or wine.
Yeah. Then you're like off the grid officially. I do that. I deliberately go places where they can't get to me.
See, I'm a bit of a Luddite, and I do this thing called turning the phone off.
What?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. How does that work?
Yeah.
It depends on the phone, but sometimes you got to pop the battery case.
You can say you can turn them. You can turn them off. Oh my God, I had no idea.
Really?
Or there's the other rule. You can leave the house.
I'm not sure that's standard on them. Yeah, I don't think mine does that.
I have an iPhone. You can't take the battery out. They did that on purpose.
Yeah. You can
well, that way you need a new phone when your battery.
It takes too long to turn it back on, so it's not worth the effort.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So just leave it on, keep it plugged in. It's all good, Anyway, so Mead, yeah, we're here to talk about Mead, yeah.
Oh yeah.
So for those of you who don't know Greg is owner of the Colony Meadery. And Greg, remind me again where you guys are from. I get all mixed up as to where everybody is.
We're in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which is in the Lehigh Valley, about an hour north of Philadelphia.
Okay, great. So any of you people in Eastern PA, Colony Meadery, I've had their mead. It's pretty damn awesome. You really want to try it, you should be going there. And Greg is also, in addition to owning really kick-butt meadery, is also the legislative chair for the AMMA, poor guy. I don't know why you volunteered to do that, but hey, I'm glad it's you and not me. So Greg understands Greg understands how to work with the TTB. I don't know if he actually understands the TTB itself, but he knows how to work his way through the system, and he's giving a talk about that at the AMMA conference next month.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting because I guess I said yes to this job, and I thought I could help in politics. I'd worked in politics for a while, and the big secret about politics is that whether it's in campaigns or bureaucracies, it's all just like pyramids and pyramids of people who are mostly all just trying to do a job. And so when you think about it, like the TTB, and it's this like faceless alphabet soup bureaucracy to a lot of people, it's like, how could anyone work with that? And then when you realize that it's just a group of people that are trying to do a job that is often as frustrating to them as it is to meadery owners, it becomes a lot less daunting, and a lot of those solutions and things that appear as conflicts are really just like us trying to work through the same outdated series of words together. And that's what I've spent a lot of the last year doing. That's what a lot of my talk's going to be about in Interlaken. So
that's really, and it's funny. People do. I mean, we tend to kind of view the TTB as this big, ugly monster place that hates us. And I mean, I have not had. I'm not a meadery owner, so I don't interact with them a lot. But I have been talking back and forth with a couple of TTB reps to get them to come on, so we can do. AMMA wants to do a town hall meeting with a TTB person, so our members can come on and ask questions. And Greg has helped me, gave me some links and some contacts, and it's been like pulling teeth. Because I email them, and like a month and a half, 2 months later, they email me back. And then I email them back, and 1 or 2 months later, they email me back again. So I'm guessing that they're overworked and understaffed and probably undertrained. And like you say, they're just as frustrated as we are. I mean, especially because we're coming in with something they don't know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as soon as they do know it, the laws change.
Yeah.
And now they have 50,000 new pages of stuff to read over, some of which are bad, some of which contradict other things that are already in the laws. And then it's dropped on them, and okay, good luck with this, guys. And so, that's a lot of it, and it is, but I think that's like all of us, right? Human nature. You think of these big bureaucracies or big government bodies, and it's like they're scary. Right? I mean, the old Reagan line of like the scariest words in the English language are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." But the reality is that they're not. I mean, for the most part, they're just people like us. They're just trying to do a job, and jobs. The reason you get paid for them is because they're not fun. Only crazy people like meadery owners get paid for what you do for free. But. So a lot of it is just sort of kind of understanding, and then I've talked to people at the TTB and various agencies, even just the idea of trying to do a town hall with a bunch of meaderies. You'd think this is a very straightforward thing, right? We would want to do this if we were the government. This thing a government should do is allow the regulators to talk to the industry in such a way that there's some dialogue. Well, except who can speak on behalf of the government is simply regulated. Someone has to say yes to this. This request needs to be put in. It needs to get kicked up a chain of command. So the people you're emailing may well be like, yeah, why can't we just do this? But someone else has to say yes. And I don't, for those of you who pay attention to our government right now, there's a lot of posts that aren't even filled. There's a lot of jobs. It's just there's nobody there to do it. And so this gets a lot more annoying and complicated than I think, a lot of people realize, because all we tend to see on the Mead side is just rules telling us things we can and can't do that are, again, often contradictory, often consistent, and, it's natural to be frustrated with it.
Yeah. Well, did you see, I forget who it was, but posted in the AMMA group today or yesterday, saying they have like a template label that they're using.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and 2 of them got approved and 2 of them didn't, and they're trying to get the other 2 that didn't approved on precedents for the other 2. And
yeah.
So it was Jason. I hope
it was. Oh, it was Jason Phelps. Was
blowing
it?
Up your spot,
Jason Phelps. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Phelps. Yeah. Sorry, Phelps, if you were trying to keep that under wraps. But I mean,
hey, he posted it, dude.
so you've got a name. In his case, shameless plug here for Jason. Ancient Fire, Cider, and Mead.
Yes, good stuff too.
The brand name has great stuff. It has the word mead in it. Well, not everything that a place that makes cider and mead might make can be by law called mead.
Yeah.
So now you've got, if you're a poor person reading the label, a beverage that might be, say, a piment, right? Which can't be called a mead by laws. You're reading this, and it says mead in huge letters at the top, and you, the person reading it, are like, this is the place's name. Of course we should be able to put it on there. But the letter of the law says you can't. So now, again, this comes down to a human decision of, can I, do I know all these rules inside and out? Can I kind of let this one go? Is this one allowed? Is this one not allowed? And to say that we're in the deeper weeds of the Code of Federal Regulations is to put it we're in the deep rough. We're in very tall grasses here. This is stuff that even the kind of senior specialists there, this doesn't come up that much. And it's not clear what the rules should be on any of these given things, and so a lot of it is about judgment calls. And about whether or not, things can be tweaked in such a way.
And chances are you've also got 3 different people handling the different parts of it all and may have come to different conclusions about it.
Right. I mean, so, I would have to look at the exact numbers, but the team at the TTB that reviews these labels, remember, this team is responsible for every wine, cider, and mead label in the country. It is just so many tens of thousands of these, and it's a team of people looking at them.
And yet they're getting approved in 1 to 2 days, so they're being pretty darn efficient, if you ask me.
They're being, and they've really stepped up in that regard, and those of us who, have meaderies of a certain age now, remember when it took weeks?
Yeah, I do. I remember when people would apply for their license and it would take 9 months. Now licenses are coming through in 30 to 60 days. And, Yeah,
I wish we'd had that.
Although you were in the middle of that 9-month period thing. That was not good.
Yeah, I mean, although again, that was honestly an important experience for us because that was kind of the first time we learned that, the people on that side of the government are really potentially incredibly helpful. Big shout out to Patty from Cincinnati, who was our specialist for getting our license, and we had filled something out that we did not totally understand on our application, and she called us to be like, hey, you filled this out a certain way, this means X. If you put it Y, it's a lot better for you. And that was just a human being like, you clearly didn't totally understand this, there's a better way to do this, and it really helped. Wow. And that's really informed a lot of the way that I think we approach our dealings with the DTB and to some extent with the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board.
Well, that's a whole other animal there from what I've heard. Yeah, I lived in PA for 3 years, so I don't understand it from your end, but I certainly saw what was happening at the other end, for people who just wanted to get the stuff.
It's quite a system we have here in the Keystone State. But I mean, there really are these dialogues that you can have that can help you as a meadery owner really, and again, these, as you said, these things come back now in 24 or 48 hours, and there's a human being, and you can call, and you can talk about it, and they know what you're looking at, and you can talk about the issues. If the specialist you're talking to doesn't really have their head around the finer points of Mead, there's senior specialists you can talk to kind of get some QA and to get a better understanding of the rules that are being enforced and that are on the books. And then, as if the rules on the books being vague and occasionally contradictory and not dealing with Mead, even if those weren't enough, there's also like informal rules internally that the TTB decides to follow at certain times, and we're trying to do a good job at the AMMA of keeping everybody up to date on that. But these things come out every so often, and again, having those conversations is sometimes the best way of understanding what the powers that be have decided to kind of allow to go through. And that's really been kind of the big thing as far as, this whole new world that we've got. The TTB has been so great as far as being responsive. We can have those dialogues now. It was much more challenging, 4 years ago.
Yeah. I just say
maybe they're just figuring out that having everybody speaking the same language and all being on the same side makes the paperwork everywhere easier for everyone. And then you don't end up, if you just explain it to someone properly the first time and you know what you're talking about when you do, then it means that they don't have to submit it 5 times and you don't have to review it 5 times.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I think it's tough to be too hard on anyone involved here for, the people who wrote these. I mean, some of these liquor laws, we got to understand, these things go back, to prohibition, to the end of prohibition. For them to not have foreseen a vibrant and diverse mead industry is somewhat forgivable.
Yeah.
The fact that they can't figure out a way to make it so that, I could make a braggot, without being a brewery owner, there's some rules that are really dumb, even in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because whenever you sit down to write rules about things and you set up classifications, okay, we're going to have breweries, we're going to have wineries, we're going to have distilleries, we're going to have all these things, right? And I think we all agree, like, there need to be laws and rules. Like, nobody thinks alcohol shouldn't be regulated at all. You can't just let anybody set up weird equipment in a garage and start selling it to people. That's not a good plan.
No. And then you end up with bathtub gin.
But the thing is,
right,
if you make it too difficult for people to do it legally, they're just going to do it illegally.
And there is some of that going on. I mean, in all parts of the craft alcoholic beverage industry has its share of people that are like, to hell with the rules. I'm tired of this crap. I'm just going to do what I'm going to do.
Or they find out ways around it, like, they're serving it in their tasting room for free as opposed to charging money for it, which means they don't have to have the, as I understand anyways, you can serve your experimental stuff in your tasting room as long as you're not selling it.
Well, it depends on
and that's a whole...
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole other part of the law, whether it's federal or state or anything, and, you talk to anyone in enforcement, and they'll tell you this, like, here's the problem is we'll write a bunch of laws and rules, and we'll say, okay, you gotta do these things, and lawmaking bodies always forget to put in, like, a mechanism for enforcement. Like, what happens if you don't do it? And so, in Pennsylvania, I've talked to LCB employees where it's like there are entire, big retailers in violation of a rule, but no one bothered to write in what happens if you're in violation, so you can't even punish them. All you could do is it's like writing them a ticket with no fine. So you've got these guys, and you say to them, this relatively small force, like, hey, it's your job to make sure alcohol is sold legally and safely by the people who are supposed to be doing it in the way that they're supposed to be. Then you're like, all right, sweet, I'm going to go out and do that. You get there and you're like, sweet, I caught you. You are doing something wrong. You are a bad, bad retailer. And I am going to give you this piece of paper that says you should definitely stop.
Or you just like point your finger at him and go, no, bad retailer.
Right.
No.
Can you imagine how frustrating that is for the people who are like trying to enforce the rules? They're not even like, they don't. what happens? They don't follow it.
Make them,
Really.
you like stomp in their little jack boots, you know what I mean?
So again, a lot of times the people in the bureaucracies have it as hard as we do. They have as frustrating a time where it's like, there are rules, but we're not exactly told how to enforce them or what happens if you don't, and that can be really frustrating as well, because certainly we spend a lot of time trying to be compliant on a whole number of levels. And then you look around and you'll see places that either don't know or don't care, and nothing really happens because sometimes nothing bad can happen to them. And it does make you wonder, why did you follow this? And that's when it becomes an existential question of whether you're like a rule follower or not.
Yeah.
Well,
and with Mead especially, we're neither fish nor fowl from their perspective officially yet. Not really. Because, we're still trying to get the Mead Act as to the official federal level definition of Mead still hasn't happened, right?
Well, the Mead Act, some pieces of that were incorporated into
the new tax
bill. So some of the taxation stuff. And I would say that certainly at an operating level of CTV, there's a pretty good awareness of what meaderies are, what Mead is, and where it is. And, like it or not, we're all wineries. And that's the law we're under. And it's probably better than being neither a winery nor something else, to just have a home. But right, there's still, and look, you get 10 meat makers in a room and you ask them what the definition of meat is, and you will get 11 different answers.
Mm-hmm. And then, and you get the ones all from if it's not just honey, water, and yeast, it's not mead. I always want to smack them. It's like, really?
Yeah, but look, every other beverage has had this problem. Like, it's had these debates, and it's good that we have them. And it's good that we have these conversations. I think, arguing around the idea that Mead is a beverage whose alcohol is derived 51% from honey, that's a good first step. I think, a lot of people within the government have kind of at least informally understood that that's what we're talking about. Whether or not the laws allow us to always use that word, that's something we're going to continue to work on.
And that is variable because I know there's meaderies like, for instance, Rabbit's Foot has been using the word mead on its labels since day one, no problem. And yet there are meaderies in other parts of the country who are obviously getting different TTB reps than what Michael's using that are trying to put mead on their labels, and the TTB is going, oh no, you cannot do that. And but they don't really give a reason. They just say, oh no, you cannot do that, and they won't let them do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reasons for that can range from the person at the DTB is new and hasn't really run across this finer point of the law yet, to the beverage that the person is trying to make is not, by the CFR, is not supposed to be called mead.
Well, and that's where not having a definition of what incorporates it becomes the problem, because if they're making a melomel, it's still a mead.
It is, and then there's this other thing where maybe the person who's reading that application isn't fully aware of the finer points of some of the new kind of loosening of the rules, where we can have common formulas, and we can have common labels, and that certain things can be called, like, you used to not be able to call it a cherry mead. It was a honey cherry wine, or whatever it is to be.
Yeah.
And again, these things, like, it's easy to say, well, this has been on the books for a long time, but we're in our 5th year, which makes us somewhat, we're not Rabbit's Foot and Bee Nectar old, but pretty old for a meadery. For half of our existence, this stuff wasn't on the books.
Yeah. Yeah.
This stuff is relatively new, and if you know any brewery owners whose breweries of a certain age, they went through this too.
Oh, I did not know
this
that.
Whole new wave. Oh, absolutely. This whole new wave of beers with everything in them, the so-called adjunct stouts, we just put God and everything in it, or cereal, or whatever the, weirdness we're throwing in hamburgers and fries. Yeah, sure. And a lot of those do still need to be formula approved. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, I remember, when I was writing about the beer industry, I would constantly talk to brewers who would have to talk to the TTB, who would have to occasionally go down to DC or call DC to say, like, no, we want to put jalapenos and and strawberries in this beer, and then the statement of composition, just the same way it is with Meadery, like, you'd have a fight over it.
Oh my God! You put vegetable and fruit into it. Now it's a wine.
Right. Is it or is it a jalapeno ale with strawberries? Is it a strawberry ale with jalapenos? I mean, again, these things, the whole beer world went through not long ago, and
So
they had a lot of success.
Are we piggybacking on what they learned and how they got it done to do it in our end of the universe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, that's the whole. That's certainly my whole goal, and I think the AMMA's goal is to get people unified. And just like beer had to, a big part of it is on our end. We need to make sure all of our members are knowledgeable. We need to make sure that we all know what the rules are, what the processes are, things like that. And then we have to keep working to continue to get this loosened up as it becomes a bigger and bigger part of the beverage industry. And again, we've already seen some of that. I mean, it is so much easier to get a formula and a label through now than it was 3 years ago. There are certain formulas and labels that don't even require a submission anymore. We have a common formula for Mead, which we did not have a year ago. These are really, really big steps. There are, a relatively small number of Meads for now, but once you start doing these things, it's about progressing, and it's about continuing to build that sort of faith with the regulators, with the industry and with the market, that we know what we're doing and we're producing stuff that's safe, and that we're continuing to move the beverage forward.
Cool. Do you feel like the information is starting to filter horizontally? Because I know there's some of the TTB agents that are really kind of up on Mead. They know their way around it, because those are the ones that everybody's always going, oh, you need to talk to Joe. He's got it going on. He knows exactly, I don't know their actual names, but, it's like, I know that there's like a couple in there that everybody's like, oh yeah, this person's great. So it would be wonderful if somehow we could get those people to disseminate their information to all the other people that are working on this stuff. I don't know how that can happen, though.
Well, the thing is, it's a government agency, so unless the government decides that they're going to put in a training program, these people probably never got a chance to talk to each other. And if they do, it's going to have to be on their own time. They're not going to get paid for it.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. Certainly, so the TTB has been actually pretty active. I mean, they took a whole bunch of new specialists to Meadery down in Williamsburg, Virginia, a few months ago.
Cool.
So they are very active at trying to educate people. But, like, look, and I hear the well, if the government decides, it's so weird to me, because whenever I hear that, it's like, the government's not one thing. And the TTB isn't one thing.
Yeah.
It's a workplace, right? So when you imagine any workplace, there are people in it that have on one item or one area and not another, and vice versa. And part of what makes workplaces work is that not everybody needs to know everything, particularly, newer employees, and that there can be that sort of faith that, no, when something doesn't work, there's somebody else there who does understand this.
Yeah.
And so as far as getting that, I mean, I've certainly found that the single best thing that, we all do is when you get something kicked back that doesn't seem right to you, rather than, stamping our feet and getting mad, to make a phone call, talk to a human being, and if you're, get a sense of their reasoning, and then say, hey, talk to a senior specialist on this, because I think my understanding of the rule is different. I've never had a problem having that conversation, and I don't know anyone who has.
Yeah, well, that's when I see people grousing, I always point out that you get more honey you get more flies with honey than with vinegar. And if you go in there, all pugnacious and everything, going, government, assholes, you're all against us, like a lot of people do. But if you go in there going, look, this is what I'm putting in, and I understand I got kicked back, so help me understand what I need to do to make sure that this is properly done.
And I've had specialists, tell me like, yeah, we can't do this for this reason or another. I've had them help me decide what to put on a label that works around the rule.
Mm-hmm.
I've said, okay, well, what, I get what you're saying. We can't use this. It was actually about the word mead. So like the mead that launched our meadery is a mojito mead called Momito.
Fun. I haven't had that
for
one yet.
half of our existence.
That yet.
Well, we'll make sure you get some.
Yeah, I'm gonna try
out in
that.
Denver.
I like mojitos.
Yeah. So for half of our existence, we couldn't call it its name, which was Mo-Mead-O. It was a specialist at the TTB who said, yeah, because there's mint and lime in here, we can't use the word mead. And she helped me come up with a phonetic workaround. So for a while, it was called Mo-Me-Do. Like, it was stupid, but she's the one that helped me kind of work around it. It can be helpful in that way because they know these rules, generally speaking, pretty well. And I mean, again, it's like, you're talking about, imagine you're a person and your job is to sift through thousands of pages of the CFR and the IRC
and half of them done
memos.
wrong, and yeah.
Yeah, and contradictory. And some guy, you've got this label that you think violates a thing as best as you can read it. And so you say, hey, you can't say this. And the person calls you back and just starts screaming at you and calling you names. Does that seem like a person you're like, are you going to be like, oh, you're right, random crazy man? Like,
Yeah.
No, you're going to be like, hey, you didn't treat me like a human here. I see no real reason to help you because you're a jerk.
Yeah. I've actually said that to people that come ranting at me. There's another forum that I manage for my black powder shooting group, and there's a bunch of old codgers in there, old grumpy guys, the get off my lawn kind of guys. And so I'll get emails going, you bitch, blah, 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 grouse, rah, 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 rant, and I'll email back, go, do you talk to your mother with that mouth? Because I ain't talking to you until you start being civil. Bye now. Because they can't get into the forum, and it's like my next email is usually like, I'm really sorry. So
see, this is why when I have to bitch at somebody, I apologize in advance that they're dealing with a disgruntled customer, and please don't take it personally, but I'm pissed off, and this is why.
That's what I do, too. It's like, I'm not taking this out on you. I'm just very frustrated, so please don't take this as not you, okay? I'm very frustrated. And they'll go, oh, no, it's fine, Mrs. Rowe. We'll take care of everything.
They tend to be much receptive when you explain that you're frustrated at the system and not at them particularly.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. And I mean, look, it's tough for me in any conversation not to get political at all. And I'm not going to try here. But, I think almost everyone could agree that one major problem with our politics as they stand right now is an inability to recognize each other's humanity.
Yes.
Like, right, is that we
yeah.
see each other as, a random series of keystrokes across the internet and not as a human being on the other side trying to do a thing.
Well, and that's not just in politics, Greg. That's just in any faceless conversation. People tend to act like, pardon my French, fucking assholes. I mean, we see it all over the place on Facebook where people come on. I mean, you see it in the Mead groups. On a regular basis, you see it in the Mead groups.
What?
People come on to be
assholes in Mead groups?
Oh, I know, right? Who would have thought? Yeah.
I've not heard this before.
When people come on and they just are complete assholes, and it's like, really? Oh, my God. Seriously? Would you stand in front of me and say that? I don't think you would. And I've said that to people before, too, same black powder shooting group full of Kajio men, where some guy came at me and actually called me like the C word and the B word, and oh my God, I mean, he just and so I emailed him back and I said, You know what? Here's where my camp is at Nationals. I dare you to come down and say that to my face. I'm betting that you're a coward and just a keyboard commando and would never, ever talk to somebody in person that way.
Did you get an apology or never spoke to you again?
I got an apology, but he never did show up at my camp because he was a coward. But the thing is, though, is that the internet, and I hate to say this because I make my living on the internet, but the internet has turned us all into faceless people who can then be randomly attacked, even by people you know. And that's what's really terrifying about this. And we can easily go off into a whole discussion about that, but the point is, though, is that the TTB is not only random people we don't know, but they're random government people we don't know, and everybody is mad at the government about something, regardless of what side of the aisle they tend to fall on. They're mad at the government about something.
Well, everybody is being pushed towards this us versus them mentality, so it's really not a surprise.
Yeah, it is.
Well, and as you say, everyone's mad at the government about something because we can just use that, kind of boogeyman government.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that, like, in this country, like, the government is us. Like, you may not like what that says theory, about us, and probably you shouldn't.
Don't even say anything, Canada.
But, like, the reality is, like, it is, the government's the largest employer. Like, in most, and that's true at a macro level. It's also true at, most micro levels. Like, it's a large employer. It's filled of people who we know, who we are, related to, who we're married to. People work in this government.
Yeah, they're actual human beings, and they're not all evil. I'm sure some of them are, but then in any large group of people, some of them are, regardless of whether they're with the government or not. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I think if we take the time as Meadery people to educate them as much as they're educating us, because, I mean, them not knowing is not necessarily their fault. They're subject to whatever the trickle-down information is through their system from on high. And as we all know, government wheels turn slowly. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast is that it takes time for anything to happen. And we need to give them the benefit of the doubt and be willing to work with them to help create a solution.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, certainly I've noticed this in the mead making community. There is not, and it is, as you pointed out earlier, it's really tough to start a meadery. It's tough to start a business. It's really tough to start an alcohol business. It's like stupidly tough to start an alcohol business in a niche that very, very few people, governmentally or otherwise, have heard of.
Yeah.
So I think by nature we all tend to be headstrong, and we all tend to be stubborn because that's a trait you kind of have to get through it. You have to at some point be unwilling to take no for an answer, and you have to have at times irrational faith in yourself and your abilities. But
I would agree with that.
those traits don't always serve us, and at times it's worth remembering that we don't know everything. And if there's a person whose job is literally to read the IRC and the CFR and enforce it, there is a solid chance they know that better than we do. And to be open to hearing, their feedback on this very, very, very small part of our business, which is wording on a label, and to being open to being educated ourselves into better ways to do this and to navigate the system, rather than to start from the sort of aggressive defensive position that I think a lot of us, again, have learned the hard way.
Yeah.
Which is I've got to just pull my way through it. And instead to go into some of these conversations in a all right, I want to do this thing, you're trying to do your thing. Let's just work through this. This is a very solvable problem.
Yeah. What have you noticed about recipes? I've seen an upswing, and I think this is precisely because we're growing so fast, but I've seen an upswing in people that are having difficulty with recipe approvals because they're using crazy ingredients. I mean, I saw somebody the other day, and it was, I can't remember what it was, marshmallow fluff. I was like, how do you put that on a recipe thing? And it was just, because we're doing what the breweries are doing and start experimenting with all kinds of weird and crazy stuff. I mean, breweries had this problem with pretty basic ingredients, as recently as 8 or 10 years ago. Oh, okay.
And this is not ancient history. That they couldn't, that they had to have these exact same dialogues and debates and all these things over it. But, to some extent, again, remember, so it's the job of the person on the other side of the computer to read your recipe and to say, this will not kill somebody. Like, this conforms to series of laws. Like, your making is safe, ish.
Ish.
Considering we all make a regulated liver toxin.
I saw that one that post the other day.
So, like, you're putting in, okay, I would use marshmallow fluff and, golden grams.
There you go.
Well, that's not a thing. Like, I mean, it's a thing, but that's not, like, so then the person who's reading that is like, I don't know what the hell's in that. What is in that? Like, how does anyone make marshmallow fluff? Like, again, imagine I am suddenly in that guy's seat, and it's like marshmallow fluff and golden grams, and it's like I literally have no idea what the ingredients of either of these things are.
But if you take
I know what they are because I've met a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
But I haven't, like, I don't know what's in them. So, like, then you're saying, okay, well, I need you to, help me do my job, which is tell my boss
what's
and
in marshmallow
eventually
fluff?
the public. I need, my job is to assure the public that what is in this is safe. What the hell is it? What is it? So that I can check the boxes and say all these things are safe, therefore what you are making is safe. And it's like, I don't know. At some point, I do understand the frustration of like, well, come on, I just, someone sold it to me over the counter. How could it not be safe to put it in a Mead? On the other hand, a big part of me is like, yeah, I get it. On the other hand, a big part of me is like, honestly, if you're not prepared to read an ingredient label and take a picture and send it to the CTV, and if you're really trying that hard to put weird stuff in Mead and you can't do those things, you probably shouldn't be allowed.
You probably shouldn't get your label approved, yeah. And I know people who have gotten graham crackers approved for recipes, and graham crackers have like half a dozen I don't know how many ingredients are in graham crackers. I don't know. I've never looked. I mean, not really.
What you do is you take a picture of the graham crackers you would like to use, the ingredients in it, and you send that back to the TTB specialist, and you say, these are the graham crackers I'm going to use.
And if it's on the GRAS,
these are the graham crackers
you're good to go, huh?
Yeah, this has already been approved by the FDA, and it's on shelves.
Yeah.
All of these ingredients are GRAS, which for, the not super nerdy listening means generally regarded as safe.
Yeah. Sorry.
All of these things, it turns into alphabet soup real quickly.
Yeah, it really does.
But it's like, if you're not prepared to do that, I kind of don't want you making Mead with weird stuff. Like, I don't know, as someone who drinks a lot of these Meads and different beverages, like, I kind of, I don't know, I'm comforted by the idea that, like, someone is checking what we're throwing in this stuff.
Well, I mean, think if somebody put, like, say, wormwood in it, I mean, there's some real problems there, I mean, that could be potentially very dangerous if not why, I mean, there's a reason why they outlawed people making absinthe because, like real absinthe, because it was hurting people. And I know the absinthe people out there are cursing me right now, but it's like, and I'm sorry, I think it tastes icky, but, I mean, it's just, I understand that it's a thing and that it's really cool and all of that, but I also know that wormwood as an item has potential dangers, and if you don't understand that and you're putting that in something you're going to sell to other people, then you probably shouldn't be if you don't understand that,
Yeah, I mean, look, one of our best-selling meads is sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
Which is previously made with sassafras, which in some forms is okay, and in some forms is not. We make it with sarsaparilla root, which is
different
part of this ingredient.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't want someone making a sarsaparilla mead who doesn't understand that difference.
Yeah.
Because one of those causes cancer, and the other doesn't.
Yeah.
And I don't want cancer.
Thank you.
Like, I mean, so again, it is, as a consumer of meads, which I would hope all of the producers of meads are, I hope we're all at least somewhat comforted that, like, this does do an important function, which is, like, it does keep people safe. And,
not dying is a good thing.
Yeah. And it's okay that somebody checks. And again, these things, when these these formula turnarounds took weeks and weeks, I understood the grievances more because it could really screw up your production schedule. But that doesn't happen anymore. They're responsive. This is usually about a function of days and a phone conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, really just not that much to ask if you're operating a commercial enterprise to have a few days of conversation with a regulator who wants to know what the hell you are putting in a beverage that goes in people's face.
Yeah.
Like,
it sounds like maybe they've gotten caught up on the paperwork so they can actually have a decent turnaround time, too.
Well, I think they codified some of their stuff, too. I think the delays were partly because of the brewing
maybe made it easier.
Because it was, about the time that was going on, and Greg, correct me if I'm wrong on this, about the time things got really seriously bogged down was when the craft brewing industry was in its greatest period of growth. Am I right?
You can, as a long time in the craft brewing industry, there's a lot of ups and downs. So remember, we wouldn't be with us. We're on the wine team at ALFD. ALFD, again, for the alphabet soup nerds, is the alcohol labeling and formula division, advertising, labeling, and formula division. So that's who reviews the labels and the formulas. And then we're all with the wine team. So actually the beer stuff, it's possible some people got transferred over. I don't really know the internal workings of that. But I think it's more that they staffed up. They understood there was a need here. They took a look at needs. I know they addressed some of those things internally with some memos with the FAQs. That was a huge deal for all of us. And that's going on, 2 years old now.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. They recognized in this workplace there was an issue that was impeding their ability to do the jobs kind of the best of the ability, and they fixed it. Which again, like for all of the criticisms of the government, it's probably worth noting we don't give the government credit when they do stuff right. Right? Nobody ever says like, hey, good job running a competent bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's just so much easier to bitch when they do it wrong.
Yeah, that's very true.
And you could argue that's a fair expectation of the government. It's supposed to work. Things are supposed to work.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for those of us who have kind of been on both sides of that, like they took a look at this and things got better. And honestly, like if the entire country or world worked like that, we'd be fine.
Yeah.
So like. I don't really know how else to put it, but there's a lot of this that's gotten a lot better, and it's largely because the people there saw that there was a problem and invested effort into making it better and succeeded.
Yeah, I think so too. When I saw the approval turnarounds going for labels and and federal licensing and recipe approvals going from months. I remember when people were taking over a year to get a license approved, and now it's happening in 30 to 60 days. I remember when it was taking 3 to 6 months to get a recipe or a label approved, and now it's literally in some cases happening same day, which blows my mind. I know we should expect our government to work, but that's kind of beyond expectation for any government.
That's fast.
That's like super fast for a government. Yeah, so I am really impressed there.
Yeah.
But,
well, and so I think there's also we also forget, so when we opened our Meadery and we were building the DIY, cooling system in our sort of first production room. We sort of learned a rule of thumb, which was that if you were going to build a series of things, the amount of time it took you to build the first one is about the amount of time it took you to build all of the rest of them.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you were putting together 8 solenoid valves, by the time you figured out the first one, whatever amount of time that took, the other 7 would take that amount of time.
Yeah.
And, on a broader level, our Meads are better now than they were 4 years ago. We have better equipment. We know what we're doing more. There's no Meadery, brewery, distillery. There's no business I've ever been to that if well run, didn't improve as they got more exposure and more reps to things. and I see no particular reason why the government wouldn't be exactly the same in this regard. That there just weren't that many meaderies 5 years ago. There weren't that many formulas. There weren't that many colas.
No.
And now there are. And so they've got a lot more exposure to it, and everyone's gotten better at handling it. Like, yes, we can sort of complain that it took too long or that things should have gone differently, but, like, ultimately that's pretty much exactly what you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
Is that as the team got more exposure, things turned around faster. People developed a competency with it. That's how we do, all of us, how we do with any new job. Your first 6 months at a new job suck. You're not good at things.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get better.
Yeah, it's a learning curve. And that's basically what's happening here
Right.
is their learning curve. I'm looking forward to when, and I'm really hoping that this will happen someday, and I know it's a ways. We've got an uphill climb to get to it, but that we're seen as our own beverage, like cider, like wine, like beer. And then instead of being like a subset of wine the way we are now, one of the biggest questions that I get all the time is, what does yearly mead production look like from year to year? And it's like, well, we have no idea. We don't know. Because that's tracked as part of wine, so it's not broken out. There's no way to say, here it is.
And to some extent that, knowing those numbers and things like that, that's on us as an industry. I think the only thing I'd say is that, like, cider is still not its own beverage.
Really?
Cider is still wine.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. I thought cider was cider.
It is not. You can't get a federal cidery license.
Aha.
You get either a winery or a brewery license.
Oh.
And they've managed to carve out a pretty good niche. And so, while I too agree that, like, at some level, the dream state would be for Mead to be such a major player on the market that finally we have our own, segment within the code.
Let's be real. We're like 1/10 of 1% of wine, so we're not exactly. We're just a blip on the radar right now.
Would be totally happy with, like, where with the constant improvement and a constant sort of normalization of where we are. And if we all keep our winery permits, like, that's really not going to cost me sleep at night.
No. I only look at it from a tracking perspective is the only thing that it doesn't really matter what the license says as long as it lets you do what you need to do.
Right?
The license could say, it's a widget license as long as it lets you make mead, who cares?
Right. Well, and that's the other thing is, like, let's say that happened tomorrow and all of a sudden, this thing that we all say that we want where there's a separate meadery license exists. Well, does that meadery license allow you to make wine? What about cider?
Yeah. What about
Because now Ancient Fire Mead and Cider has a meadery license and can't make cider. I don't think Jason wants that.
I don't think so either.
I don't, as someone who, we make cider for another brand, but, like, I don't want that. Brad doesn't want that. Like, there's a lot of advantages to being where we are in the code. It allows us all to play in different markets, to make ciders if we want to do that. There are a bunch of meaderies that are, that make a wine, and there are a bunch of wineries that make a mead. With varying degrees of success.
Yeah.
But, like, these are good things, and I think there is this tendency that we have to look at every restriction and everything as status quo and see only its negatives, and not to think about, like, well, if you were to change this, there would be other rules, and those rules wouldn't necessarily benefit everybody. And so, if the goal is to allow us, if the goal is to allow us to make the beverages we want to make, then as far as I can tell, the best way to do that is to continue to ease restrictions on wineries. And that's going to involve working with Wine America and working with cider and working with representatives and continuing to do all these things. But I don't know that the best way to increase our freedoms is to create a new restrictive classification.
That's a really interesting perspective. Yeah, I never really looked at it that way. And like I say, my interest extends only to, I sure wish I could look at the overall production numbers and say this piece is mead somehow. I know we're mostly classified as other than standard wine, so I guess I could separate that much, but I would love to be able to pull us out of that somehow and be able to hand those numbers off to people that are looking to open a meadery and getting a business loan. There's no numbers. So, yeah, it falls back on us as an industry to do something about that, and I'm just going to have to figure out a way to do that from the other end,
Well, the thing is, though, that mead is so different from everything else. There's so many different ways of making it that it's really hard to write a definition that's going to encompass it all.
Well, and that's
and it's
true,
also, and it also, like, you can have beer strength, you can have carbonated, you can have not carbonated, you can have, strong, you can have sweet, you can have dry. There's really no style called mead. And, in Canada, anyways, you can make mead if you have a winery license, and you can make mead if you have a brewery license. But if you have a brewery license, it has to contain grain, so it's actually a braggot. But if I don't know if you go in as a meadery, as opposed to a winery, whether you can make wine. But the thing is, if you're as a meadery, you have to use your own honey. If you're as a winery, you have to use your own fruit. So I don't know whether there's some leeway in, if you're making the other at the same time. So it's one of those things where here you have to really choose how you're going to register yourself before you jump into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's one of those things where there's a number of different classifications, but they're all restrictive. And as far as tracking numbers, so you can get from the government, you can get numbers on beer production, but that's going to include a lot of things that we might say, like, is that really beer? That's going to include a lot of malt liquors, I believe, alternatives, things like that, and we would say, well, is that really beer? If you want craft beer numbers, those come from the Brewers Association. Those come from an industry trade group. Right. And that's the thing. And so, like, if you get numbers from the Brewers Association next year, that will not include Flying Dog, which is not a member of the Brewers Association.
Yeah.
Which is a decent-sized brewery.
Yeah.
And has, political differences with the leadership of the Brewers Association over silliness.
Okay.
So, like, and honestly, it includes every small brewery who doesn't feel like spending $500 a year on the Brewers Association. So, like, those numbers largely are not reported by the government. The government can do kind of like big reporting things, usually regarding to revenue and taxes and things like that. But if it comes to tracking mead production and the mead industry, ultimately, I believe that needs to come from us. I believe that needs to come from the AMMA, from, working with, if there's a Canadian sort of faction or variant of it, that needs to come from us. That's going to have to be something that we get together as an industry and say, here's how we feel, how big our industry is. It's just, that is kind of how it works. Like, if you look at wine production, a lot of that comes from Wine America, not from the government.
That's true. You got a good point there. And honestly, and I've said this before, I'm looking seriously at just gathering together a group of people to sit down on the phones and to call each and every meadery in the country, whether or not they're members, and say, hi, we're trying to get this together, not just for the industry as a whole, but for all new meaderies that are coming in after y'all, to give, people something to work with so that they can say, hey, this is how big we are. This is how big our industry was. This is how big our industry is. This is how big we think our industry will be. To give them something to hang their hat on. Like, this is where we're at. This is what we've got.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'll make those phone calls.
Yeah, I know. That's to say, I've got a bunch of people that have said they would. So, and I've got a list of the meaderies, and I've got people right now that are checking and expanding and correcting the list to verify all the information on it. So, hopefully, within by after the conference and the Mazer Cup, we'll have a valid list that includes everybody we know about.
Yeah, and I think that'll kind of be a solid sort of last point, which is like, a lot of the responsibility for all of these things, like, and you said earlier that government, the wheels of government turn slow, or my favorite expression, moves at the speed of government.
Yeah.
Like,
my daughter's in the army, so I totally get it. It's hurry up and wait.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. A military time means more than one thing. So, like, a lot of the responsibility for enacting any change does not fall on the government. It falls on the people in the industry to have the organization and to have the compelling sort of, force to make that case and to work as one and to row in the same direction.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately that's the next step for the meat industry, is to get everyone together in the way that wine and beer and cider do, and to continue to consolidate that so that we have these numbers and so that we do work together, and that we can go to whatever government official or agency we need to and say, this is what we represent and this is how we feel as one.
Yeah. That gives us some swing.
It's also just if you can't do that, then asking a large body to change isn't really reasonable, right? If you can't organize yourselves, asking the government to make changes for you is not a reasonable request.
Yeah.
It's not how any democratic system is built. Like it or lump it, and it does move slower, there's no question about it, but the responsibility for change falls on the citizenry. And in our case, that's our industry. And I think that what we've seen in the last year has been awesome, that there's been so much energy dedicated to it, so much, progress, and so many people really working toward things going in a better direction that we've seen real results.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Yeah, and then, we as an industry need to pull together and we can help that change. We can help them do what needs to be done to make things smooth-ish for us. It's what we do. It's all we can do, really. It's...
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, yeah, I like it. I'm looking forward to see what else you're bringing to the table at your talk at the conference next month. That's, this was pretty dense tonight, so, it's going to be really interesting to see what else you've got.
Well, that's the thing is that, any of these conversations, it's really tough because it's like I can go at a high level and, like, I can get as into the weeds as anybody to the point where, like, half the people in the audience won't know what I'm saying. So I have to really walk that line between being like, guy who asked me a question, yes, here's the answer to that question, but here's how it might apply to other people. And then, also just being willing to say to when it comes to state laws or meaderies in other countries, it's like, some of these I know and some of these I really don't. What I can do is help, I think what the AMMA can do is give you the tools to get a group of people together in your state or nation, whatever, and start to organize and track these things yourself so that when you're talking to your governments, those conversations are productive.
Well, we'll have to start dragging you around the country for TTB meetups, huh?
As long as there's, free meads involved.
I'm pretty sure we can manage the free mead part without too much trouble, so... We just added Chrissie into the conversation. Yeah, right. Yeah, here's all the experimental stuff. We're still waiting for label approvals on this, Greg.
What's in this? Wormwood. What?
What? Yeah. Oh, that's got rat poison in it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we've got Chrissie on the line too.
Why is
we just
this
brought
glowing?
her in. Hey, Chrissie.
Hi there. Wow, what a weird moment to join.
I know, right?
Rat poison.
Rat poison. Yeah. Did you even know this? Yeah. No, we were just talking about. We've been talking about recipe approvals with Greg, and we were talking about some of the weird stuff people are trying to put in there, and then the TTB's saying, what? Turn your sound on your end, Chrissie. I'm getting feedback.
Oh, is that not sounding good?
No, you were fine. It's just that I was getting feedback on my end. You guys hearing this?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Let me try one.
Just don't have the show playing in the background, and you should be fine.
Is that better that way?
Yeah, that's better.
In Mead.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. But yeah, Greg's been on for the first hour talking about TTB and what's going on there and what he's learned and that kind of thing, and I'm pretty sure that he's got at least another 2 hours in him at the conference. So we just scratched the surface tonight.
All right. Well, I'll look forward to hearing all that at the conference. I can't wait for the big conference.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Greg. We really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to see what you got to what you got to say. Yeah, Hamish is saying rat poison is heart medication. It's also a blood thinner. I take it every day. It's called Coumadin. They really love that stuff, you know.
You're going to be the person in the back of the session with popcorn, right?
While I'm
answering these questions, right?
I'm going to put on a Michael Jackson mask and sit in the back of popcorn, you know. And
Well, thank you guys very much, and I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to seeing you all out in Denver.
Thanks, Greg. We appreciate it. We'll see you next month, man. Well, actually, I'll talk to you next week probably, but yeah.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, see you later.
Bye, Greg.
And for those of you that are going conference, what conference? Go to AMMA.brownpapertickets.com and you can get your conference tickets and you can come see Greg and Chrissie and a whole bunch of other very interesting people talk for 2 days straight on all things Mead. So, PSA for the day. Anyway, welcome, Chrissie, to Got Mead Live again.
Well, thanks very much. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Vicki. And yes, the conference will be very exciting. It's not just listening to other people talk. It's getting to hang with all the cool Mead people and just be completely marinated in Mead. If you stay for Mazer Cup, right, then basically like for the whole week. It's really one of the highlights of the year.
Yeah, it really is.
Marinated. Sergio and I do well.
Yeah, marinating from the inside out.
Yeah, if you can find Stairway 9 3/4, we'll be all set, Hamish. It's gonna be years before you live that one down.
Is the problem.
Yeah. Chrissie, in case you weren't up on that particular little inside joke, Sergio sent Hamish looking for a room number that didn't exist, and Hamish is texting him pictures of, there ain't no room here, mate, that has this number on it. So basically we've decided that he was looking for room 9 3/4 or stairwell 9 3/4, and he just had to run at it really fast, and then would take him to, the
party.
Yeah. To
wow.
Mead words.
Sounds like you have really had quite a bit of Mead then, huh, Hamish?
No, he sent
to
me
run
to
at
a room.
the door?
No, he didn't. We just told him to.
He said room 3, and on my right was room 4, and on my left was room 2, and in between it was a stairwell. And I'm like, that can't be right.
It was amusing.
The old trick of sending it to the ninth screen at 7 p.m. when sprinklers come on.
Yeah.
Dick move.
Total dick move, but definitely one that some Mead person would probably pull, because then we'd all laugh maniacally and run away and drink more Mead, but yeah.
And go drink more Mead.
Yeah. So, Chrissie, I got an email from you today that made me go squee. So, tell us what's going on with the book.
Well, so I think I'm going to write a second book. I think I'm going to put together a compendium of Mead cocktail recipes.
Ooh.
I know there are an awful lot of them swirling around. Yeah.
There are a lot
So
of
I
them.
know there are literally scores of them, maybe hundreds of them, swirling around out there in glasses of Mead everywhere. And what's really exciting to me about Mead cocktails is that they've crossed over into the mainstream bar culture. So even as much as Mead has grown the last 10 years, we all know we're kind of our own little side fringe that isn't fully integrated into the mainstream yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the one place that's really not true anymore is in bar culture, and a lot of mainstream mixologists have a Mead cocktail on their bar menu now. So I'm trying to collect those, and probably in the future we'll be releasing, 1,001 Mead cocktails or some similarly titled book.
That sounds like
fun.
Will there be a chapter on syllabub also?
Syllabub? Oh, God, yeah, Mead syllabub would be totally awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
There will be...
Syllabub, I insist.
Well, then you better start sending me a recipe. So, I mean, I'm expecting there would be, for instance, a whole chapter of Meaderitas because everybody makes them, and everybody makes them a little different. So, you know, if there's 15 recipes for similar drinks, those would all be collected in a chapter. And syllabus certainly could be a chapter all on its own. Wassail punches could be a chapter all on their own, for example. But I'm offering a free copy of the book to anybody who sends me essentially a publication-ready recipe. So that means it's a full recipe, tested. It has a high-definition photo. Whatever mead is used in the recipe, the bottle of that mead should be photographed also. And there's a very brief standard permission paragraph that I want you to copy and send along with your entry, basically giving me permission to use your photograph and the recipe.
This is all going to be published on Got Mead so that you guys don't have to remember all this.
Terrific. Thank you for that. So, you know, just, I mean, a basic standard disclaimer giving me permission to use what you send me. And your mailing address. And the mailing address is important because without that, I couldn't send you your free copy of The Art of Mead Tasting and Food Pairing.
Nice. And wasn't there an award that was being considered for The Art of Mead Tasting and Food Pairing?
Well, it's pretty exciting. So two of the most prestigious cookbook awards are the Gourmand International World Cookbook competition, and The Art of Mead Tasting and Food Pairing is an official semifinalist in its particular category. I think the category is something like non-wine book about alcohol or something like that. So it's an official semifinalist.
So we're still other than standard, but that's cool. That is super cool.
Yeah, it is. It is super cool. So, I mean, aside from, you know, it being exciting for me personally since I wrote and published the book, really the whole thing about the book in the first place was just to get more mainstream attention for mead and to get a consumer guide for mead out there floating around in the mainstream for people to pick up and learn from. So that's very exciting. It's also being considered for a James Beard Award, and the short list comes out the day after tomorrow. So I don't know yet if The Art of Mead Tasting and Food Pairing is on the short list, but keep your fingers crossed. That would be a lot of attention for the mead industry.
Yeah, James Beard
Award.
Even
with the semifinalist.
That's like the gold medal of Olympics of cookbook awards. I mean, geez.
Yeah.
That's the Michelin star of cookbook awards.
It really is. Yeah, that's it. When I saw the email, I saw the email while I was hanging out at the doctor's office waiting to be seen, and I was just and I didn't want to like squeal out in the doctor's office. I figured it'd scare people. So. You know. And but yeah, it was like way cool. So yeah, I'll be publishing that for you tomorrow.
Terrific. Thank you.
No worries. But yeah, that's just super cool because it is. I mean, okay, guys out there, if you have not got a copy of The Art of Mead Tasting and Food Pairing, then you really, really need to have one. I mean, this is the definitive book on mead and food. I'm getting echoes again.
As far as I can tell, remarkably, I think it's the only full-on consumer guide to mead that's ever been written in any language. To the best of my knowledge, that's a true statement. So thank you for your kind words about it. I'm proud of it. I think it's a nice book. So you can buy it on Amazon, or you can buy it directly from me, in which case I'd be happy to autograph it for you, and that's at meadandfood.com.
And she will also have copies for sale at the AMMA Conference. So, and she'll be signing books there too. So you can you can bring your copy, or you can pick up a copy there and get it signed. So.
But enough about me. Let's talk about Valentine's Day. It's tomorrow, right?
It is. It is. Yeah.
I bought a lottery ticket. Seems
That's
like a
cool.
good gift.
Why not? Yeah.
It's already Valentine's Day here.
Well, yeah, it's already Valentine's Day in Australia.
So I'm thinking a stay-home Valentine's Day meal, because we all know you still can't really go to a restaurant and order meat on the menu, right? So
No, not yet.
a stay-home Valentine's Day menu organized around aphrodisiac ingredients.
Ooh.
So, of course, mead is the ultimate and original aphrodisiac. We all know that. Attributed with fertility. It's attributed with gifting the properties of being honey-tongued and mead of poetry and so forth. All the sweet talking is even named after mead, right? So clearly your Valentine's Day dinner should be paired with mead. I'm going to suggest 3 different meads for a Valentine's Day dinner. You want something like a champagne aperitif at the beginning. You want something like a dry to semi-sweet kind of main course mead. And then you want a dessert mead to wind up the evening with. And then all the food for your Valentine's Day meal should be centered around aphrodisiac ingredients. And I just did a post on this today on the Meat and Food Facebook page, and I think I copied you on it, Vicki, so you can repost that associated with this podcast too. So scallops and oysters are classic aphrodisiac ingredients, and oysters and champagne are a classic pairing. So how about a Hedron champagne-style Méthode Champenoise mead paired with oysters as a beginning? And then there are a number of ingredients that would all work together in a main course dish, which have aphrodisiac properties. So we've got arugula, pine nuts, pomegranate, avocado, artichokes, and chili peppers. And although I don't have a specific recipe, it's not hard to imagine just sort of putting those with a main dish protein, whether you prefer tofu or chicken or some kind of seafood, and kind of making those all work together in a main course. Is that too much of a stretch?
No, it sounds yummy so far. I just shared your post, by the way. It's shared to the Got Mead page. So.
Excellent, thank you. So I'd kind of sear all those things together in a frying pan, except the arugula, and then serve it on top of the arugula, which would make a real pretty presentation, and maybe sprinkle the pomegranate rolls on top. And, of course, that gives it a nice red pop of color, which looks nice on Valentine's Day, too.
Nice.
And then for dessert, you got to have chocolate. And you got to have chili peppers. So I would go flourless chocolate cake, and I've got a great recipe for that in the book. And I would pair that with a capsamel, because what could be hotter and spicier and, well, hotter than an excellent capsamel. So the best capsamels tend to be balanced with a lot of sweetness. And there are many, many good ones. The Colony Meadery, you were just talking with Greg, makes a fantastic one called Beso Exotico.
I love
there's
that.
another
That's
great
really
capsamel from the other Greg, Wild Blossom Meadery in Chicago. He makes a terrific one called Pirate's Blood. Mm-hmm. But really, there are scores of excellent capsamels now in the U.S.
Oh, yeah. And at all level of heat, too. Everything from Chipotle's all the way up to Carolina Reapers just depends on how hot you like it,
That's right. And they'll really all go well with the flourless chocolate cake. And one of the things I really like about that pairing is that when you're drinking these capsamels that are pretty spicy, you want something relatively bland and relatively absorbent and relatively high fat, so that you're kind of cleaning your mouth of pepper oil every time you take a bite. And that keeps a capsamel, even a really hot one, from getting completely overwhelming. And sort of clears your palate and gets you ready for the next hot and spicy sip.
That sort of makes me think chocolate cheesecake would work well with that.
That would be terrific, yes.
Well, isn't anything
so that's
with a...
my Valentine's Day suggestion.
No, I like that. That sounds really yummy. So, okay, so as long as we're on the idea of special day meals, what would you do for an anniversary?
Well, if I was celebrating an anniversary, I, of course, would start with what are the special favorite foods of the person I'm celebrating the anniversary with, right? So in my case, my Persian husband is particularly fond of lamb. I would start there, but that's because I'd be cooking for him on our anniversary. So, again, really, I think the key is this spirit of intent, that if you're celebrating an anniversary, you want to dial that into whatever your special partner loves. And I would start with some kind of appetizer that's a finger food. So something like a hummus dip or another kind of dip that you're eating with your hands, because that's a very sensuous thing to do. I would have the main courses all on one serving plate, sort of served family style, because that encourages intimacy. When you pre-plate things like restaurants do and bring them out separately, it makes the situation a little more formal and a little more standoffish. And I suggest that when you're celebrating an anniversary or another special day with someone you love, that's not the tone you want to set for that meal, right? You want real intimacy. And sharing food is sort of the ultimate, well, the second most intimate thing you can do with it.
Good save, Chrissie. Good save.
Wow, we're all married here, right?
Yeah, right.
And then I'm also going to suggest, notice I haven't even brought up the mead yet.
Yeah.
It's all about mood. So the other thing is, like, you don't want to sit across the table from each other, because that's sort of adversarial. I suggest that you pull the chair around to the side of the table so that you're sitting at a 90-degree angle to each other, because then you can still look at each other while you're talking and eating, but you're kind of on the same side. And it sort of metaphorically puts you back on the same side. So then we can talk about the mead. So if you're serving a red meat, for example, I love pie mints, and I love melomels made with bigger red fruits like elderberries or cherries or blueberries. Those tend to have a little bit more tannin in them and a little more oomph to stand up to a red meat dish. You can also, if you can't find something red, you can also kind of work around that problem by going with a higher alcohol traditional meat. So when you get up into the 14, 15, 16% alcohol range, that extra intensity helps to balance the big flavors and the high fat content of a red meat. If, on the other hand, you're going with chicken or seafood, then you want a lighter texture in the meat and something a little drier and lighter, more in the style of like a Chablis or a Chardonnay. And most meaderies, I think, these days are making a drier, semi-sweet traditional mead that works great with chicken or fish.
Yeah, there's a lot more of that going on than people realize. I see a lot of people saying all meads are sweet, and it's like, no.
It's like saying all wines are sweet because grape juice is sweet. Get over it, people.
Well, no, it's not that. It's just that there's so many people that haven't really... I mean, Chrissie and I have probably had more meads between us than anybody else in the country, because Chrissie was out there researching for her book, and I've been traveling the country tasting meads for 20 years. So, you know, I mean, we get out there and we see all the different ranges, and I see a lot of drier meads.
Yeah.
Quite a few of them, and a lot more than people realize, because the ones that are getting widely distributed tend to be on the sweeter side, just because those are the larger meaderies, and they don't have the larger meaderies don't have a ton of dry meads. They've only got a few.
So, not to do too much of a plug on the book, but for people who haven't tried drier semi-sweet meads, or who still think that all meads are sweet, I think one of the things that I really like about how the book turned out is at the end of each chapter, I've compiled a catalog of meads in that category, and particularly meads that have won awards at Mazer Cup, and meads from meaderies that consistently put out top products. And that doesn't mean that this is an exclusive list and that there aren't other fine meads out there. There certainly are, and there's more every year.
Oh, yeah.
But rather, if you don't know what you're doing and you want to make sure that you get a good dry mead to start with, it gives you a list of meads that if you buy one of these, you're sure to get a good thing.
Yeah. And that's good, because then at least it gives you a good start to see what a good one tastes like. Because we're like any other industry. There are some that are not great, too, and it's, you can stumble over those. It happens. And I've had some that were ones that I won't go back for. And many others that I will.
Well, it's also a matter of your taste, too.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I unfortunately, the many years of judging I've done has ruined me to the point where I can't go, oh, I personally like or don't like this. I completely look at it and go, is this a good mead now? And I actually buy meads that are not necessarily to my personal taste, but that I know are good meads that I might want to serve to somebody else or trade with somebody, for something else. So, that I can't get. So, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it may not be, I've heard people say this mead is crappy when it's not a bad mead. It's actually quite an excellent mead that just may not have liked it. There's a difference.
I'm aware of that because of my attempts to figure out what I like and don't like in a beer. But there's that sort of realization where you realize that I don't like this very much, but there are some good points if it wasn't for this.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think generally life is too short to drink something you don't like.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, no question about it. I will buy things that are not, like I say, that are great, that I think are well put together, but not that is like on my favorites list, because my husband has different tastes than I do. Some of my friends have different tastes. So I want to have something I can offer them, Like, I've got a girlfriend that's like a total nut for Polish meads, and while I like Polish meads, they're not at the top of my list because they're actually too sweet for me now. I just don't handle them the same way I did, but I appreciate how well they're put together. But she loves them, so I keep them around, because when she comes over, then I can open a bottle and she'll enjoy that,
Well, that's the other thing, too, is you got to keep trying different things because your tastes change over time.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? I have so noticed that. When I first started drinking mead, so I'm 53, so I'm talking about like 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
What I really liked were the sweet, cordial-like meads.
Me too.
Yep.
I liked them with big flavor, really big flavors, like sour flavors, almost like sour lemon candy kind of thing.
Well, yeah, to balance all the sweet, right?
Yeah, and very sweet. And I've definitely noticed that as I get older, I prefer things less sweet, and I appreciate subtle flavors a lot more than I used to. So, Vicki, I think you're right. You can have a range of meads in your personal collection, and you can be ready to pull out kind of the sweeter, easier to appreciate first meads for your younger friends.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also have drier, subtler, maybe more sophisticated meads for your friends who are used to dry wines or fine beers.
Yeah, my daughter's
be able to please everybody.
Yeah, my daughter's a dry wine nut. She loved the sweeter meads when she was helping me taste them when she was a teenager. Now she's all of 26, and yeah, and oh mom, no, I drink Merlots and in cabs, and I'm like, okay then. So I keep my eyes open because I know she liked mead in the past. So just as a personal challenge, because my daughter's kind of in this whole oppositional "I know more than you do, Mom" thing, and it's just it's cool, it's fine. She's finding her feet. She's married and got a kid now, got her own. She's an Army captain. So she's like, there's no, I can't tell her anything. What do I know? I'm just a 55-year-old old person. But, so and that's cool. I'm totally hip with that. But I go looking now for meads that I know fit the flavor profiles that I know she likes. So just as a kind of a personal challenge thing. And then along the way, I find meads that I like. I mean, I tend more towards semi-sweets now. Chrissie, I was like you. I was like in the big jammy sweet meads. And while I still like the occasional jammy sweet mead, I can't handle it the way I could then. It gives me heartburn, and I just can't drink it. But at least not more than a glass. So now when I want to have when I want to share a bottle of mead with somebody, I'm going to tend more towards the semis and maybe even into the semi-dries depending on what I'm looking for.
Yeah, me too. Can I take a segue, though, and talk about sweet mead for a second?
Yeah,
I made
totally.
an amazing discovery on my last trip to Europe.
Oh?
So this is the holy grail of mead. I couldn't believe this place that I stumbled onto. So Prague is a really cool city. I don't know if you've ever been to Prague, but it has to be on your list of places.
It's on the bucket list, and I think I know what you're going to say, but go for it.
Yeah, so there is a bottle shop in Prague which is dedicated to mead. And these are meads that you cannot find in the United States. So these are Polish, Czech, and Slovak meads. Most of them, because they're from that region of the world, are pretty dang sweet. And they tend to be a little higher in alcohol than we're used to in the U.S. So I would say most of them were in the 14 to 18% range. Most of them were traditional meads. There was very little added ingredients. There were some, but that wasn't mostly what I saw. I'm going to say there were close to 80 different meads in this bottle shop.
Wow.
And they were phenomenal. Just an absolute revelation. And brands you'll never see in the U.S. or even at Mazer Cup. It was absolutely heaven. This little shop is right in Old Town Prague. So if you're anywhere in city central Prague, you can walk there. Which is good because you'll be needing to walk home or maybe get an Uber.
Yeah, they don't screw around with those Eastern European meads, man. They'll kick you in the butt.
Oh, they will. They'll kick your ass. And they were so beautiful. I just don't even have vocabulary to tell you how fragrant and floral and authentically varietal they were. And all these honey or flower varieties that I've never heard of before. Some of them were aged in oak. Some of them were very old. Some of them were very expensive. Some of them weren't. They had one program where you could taste 5 meads and another program where you could taste 10 meads, and it was astonishingly reasonably priced. So the Czech unit of money is called a CZK, which I don't even remember what it is, a Czech kroner or something. That's not right. But, it was on the order of $3 and $6 to do these tastings.
Oh, my gosh.
And just absolutely one of the highlights of my whole trip. So, Prague. This place is called the Mead Museum, or the Museum of Mead, or Medovina Museum. They have a Facebook page.
I think I linked them on AMMA and the Got Mead page a couple days ago because somebody else posted up something about it. Maybe it was you, I don't remember. And I immediately shared it, going, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah, I remember seeing that go by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So completely, it needs to be on your bucket list.
Well, Prague was already on the bucket list. Now it's just on there twice.
Now there's an asterisk on Prague.
The meat enthusiast should dedicate a whole day. And then, because it's hard to carry glass bottles around on airplanes and stuff, I'm going to suggest you want to go to Prague first and then travel by train for a few days, because you're going to want to buy stuff. And
yeah,
you're not going to want to have to, have it in one drunken spree, right? These are beautiful meads that you want to enjoy over a few days.
Yeah, that would be rude to drink them all at once. I mean, certainly not upholding the mead, because mead is a culture over there. I mean, that's the thing, is it's a cultural icon in several of the Eastern European countries, and I mean, at least in Poland, it's an unbroken tradition going back at least 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they know how to make mead. Yes, it's sweet, but it's also supremely well constructed.
They all were, yeah. So yes, they were sweet, but sweet like a perfect Sauterne, right? The acid and the alcohol were perfectly in balance. There was nothing cloying about any of these meads. They were all superb.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm going to have to go there. And I've got an open invitation from several of my Eastern European friends to come visit various meaderies out there. So my goal is to go spend a couple of weeks just going to Poland and Latvia and Estonia and, Bosnia and, all of Prague and all of these different places, because there's all these
Have you
investigated
how much it's going to cost to send the RV over yet?
Send the RV over? God, wouldn't that be awesome? Yeah, all y'all would be flying in going, let's go!
Yeah, you could get that through the streets there.
Yeah, right? That's the thing, is this shoot, can you see trying to get that through some of those old town streets? Yeah, no, I don't think so.
Someone's always got to ruin it.
Yeah, I know. That's right. They got trains. We don't need an RV where we're going. They have railroads there, unlike here where you can't really call them railroads. Yeah.
And the railroads are even better, because you can bring your mead onto the train and drink it while you go from city to city, unlike
that's nice.
Driving your own RV.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. If they'll let you drink it on the train, you can't do that here. They'd take it away from you.
Oh, you definitely can drink on European trains.
Yeah, well, they understand alcohol over there, that's why. So tell us a little bit about what you're going to do at the conference, Chrissie.
So, yeah, I'll be talking at the conference. I'll be talking on the topic of mead tasting and food pairing. And I'll definitely have pictures in the presentation that come from the book. But really the talk is going to be not so much prescriptive, like eat this with this mead. Rather, it's really going to be the theory or the science of how to pair things and how to determine what goes together. So,
well, that's what I really want to know. And we were talking at the start of the show. AJ said she likes to pair things that she puts meat in, that she would put meat into while cooking, and I'm like, so that's the associative or complementary pairing that you always talk about. What I really want to know about is the contrast pairing, and how to get things that contrast to not taste like yuck.
Yeah, that's hard. So thanks for asking that, and that's a real art. So, I think, I don't know, maybe I'm just assuming things, but I hope each of us has had contrasting flavor pairings where the contrast is amazing and wonderful and not a horrible clash. So there are a lot of examples of this. For instance, and sometimes it's easier to think of it even taking the alcohol beverage out of the picture and just talk about contrast separately. So, for instance, when you have fish and chips, for example, right? And you've got the white fish that's a fairly bland flavor, but it's got a lot of fat because it's been deep fried, right? And then we either squeeze some malt vinegar or some lemon on top of it, or some people like tartar sauce, which is very acidic and has a very sharp flavor from the pickles in it. And those sharp acid flavors cut through the fat, and there's contrast between the two, but that contrast is precisely what makes it work, because if you were just eating fried foods without anything to get that oil out of your mouth, it quickly becomes cloying and overwhelming. And on the other hand, if you were just sucking on a lemon all day, you can't do that either, right? So you need the fish with its oils to sort of replenish the oil and the moisture in your mouth so that you can handle another tart suck on the lemon. So that's an example of a contrast. So bring it back around to mead. I think an outstanding example is blue cheese. So on a cheese plate, a classic condiment for blue cheese has always been honey. And for at least decades, maybe longer than that, when you bring the blue cheese out, it's traditional to drizzle it with honey. And so that's a clue that that may work well with mead, right? Anything that works well with a drizzle of honey is likely to work well with mead. Cornbread would be another example, right? So cornbread is great drizzled with honey.
Oh, yeah.
And corn and mead are two flavors that are always going to work well together, almost no matter how you do it. So similarly for blue cheese, it's strong, it can be high fat or dry, but it's got this funky flavor, and the sweetness and the honey flavors of the mead just balance it out perfectly, even though it's a big contrast. And it works both on a cheese plate when you've just got a block of blue cheese, but it also works, for example, if you have a steak with blue cheese, like a blue cheese sauce on the steak, that's going to be great with mead. Or if you have blue cheese stuffed in dates, or even better, blue cheese stuffed in dates and wrapped with bacon, because the dates are good with mead, the bacon's good with mead, the blue cheese is good with mead, and it all just resonates in this gorgeous way.
I've had dates and blue cheese, dates wrapped with blue cheese and bacon at a, it was at a tapas place up north of Boulder, and it was the only time I've ever had blue cheese that I've ever liked it. I'm not real fond of blue cheese generally, but that was amazing. It was an utterly amazing thing. I could have sat there and ate that all night long.
Yeah, well, my most surprising contrast that I've come up against lately was apparently it's very common in Italy to have prosciutto with rock melon or cantaloupe. And to me, those two flavors are just so different.
Oh, that would be good. No, that would be yummy.
Yeah, that's an excellent example.
Well, I like
I don't know what it's got to do with honey, but
yeah, those salami, the giant salamis my mother-in-law gets my husband. That and an apple, a big slice, chunk of the salami and an apple together.
Mm-hmm. With a nice piece of aged cheese.
Now you can keep the aged cheese, but the apple, the acidity from the apple cuts the grease from the sausage really nicely.
Yeah.
And I guess the sweetness and the salty are complementary.
Yeah, and that actually is a great example. So you can take those kinds of examples that you already know, right? Sausage and apples, or pork and apples, pork chops and applesauce. I mean, pork and apples in almost any combination are just classic. They go together in dozens of ways. So pork is always going to work well with a sizer, for example. And you can take almost any pork recipe and almost any sizer, and as long as they're matched in intensity, they're going to work well together every time. And that includes the prosciutto you were just talking about.
Nice. That would be really interesting.
But pork goes so well with honey, you don't even need to limit it to sizes. It just goes. I mean, if I'm going to have a nice meat, I'll make sure I'm eating pork. That's how I pair stuff. I have pork and meat. That's it.
And some of the reason that works is because pork tends to be quite fatty, and so something fatty is high intensity, and it tends to work well with things that have both high sugar and high alcohol. And of course, mead often, not always, often has those characteristics, and so they tend to work together really well.
Bobby is saying that his favorite honey dessert is vanilla ice cream peanut butter drizzled with honey and a graham cracker or Oreo pie crust. That sounds pretty decadent.
That does sound pretty decadent.
Yeah.
And if anybody could put all of that in a bottle, it would be Bobby.
It would be Bob, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be up there next weekend, so if he has that, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he did.
Bobby, did you hear that? I want your vanilla ice cream, peanut butter, graham cracker, Oreo pie crust Mead for the Mesa Cup. I'll be expecting it.
And if you had a dessert with all those things in it, the only thing missing would be chocolate. And Staff House Meadery in New Hampshire makes a beautiful chocolate mead.
They do.
Actually, their chocolate mead was on the top 100 spirits of the world list a couple of years ago.
Oh, my.
It was, yeah.
And that chocolate mead is just lovely. It's not too sweet, which is one of the things I really, really like about it. But it has this just intense pop of chocolate flavor. So if you're putting it with, for example, a peanut butter pie or vanilla ice cream or almost anything that you could pair chocolate with, you can use the chocolate mead instead of chocolate in the recipe and still get that compatibility of flavor.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. Well, okay, so one of the things I make at Christmas on some years when my family asks for it is bourbon chocolate pecan pie, which is, yeah, it's basically it's a pecan pie, but I add in, and this is an old Southern recipe, but I add in, I use Belgian chocolate. I have a big bag of Belgian chocolate that I hoard for just this. This is the only thing it gets used for. And I put Belgian chocolate in it, and then you add some bourbon to it, and you just basically cook it up in regular pie crust, but it's like beyond decadent. I mean, one teeny tiny little sliver of this stuff. And I served it to my mother-in-law one time, and she looked at me, she snarfed down her piece, looked at me, and said, "Never make this again."
Which is not what she really meant at
No,
all,
of course
was it?
not, yeah. But yeah, it's very good. It's very, very good stuff. But I mean, I could totally see that with, yeah, I would almost want to have that with a capsicum. Like, probably only a chipotle level, though. It would want to be a mild one, but I'd want something with spice, because that is super sweet, and I think a spicy mead, a semi-sweet spicy mead, would be perfect with it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
When you've got bourbon in the food, I think an oaked mead, and you know, a lot of people are making meads now aged in previously used barrels, not just in virgin barrels.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a bourbon barrel that's now been used to age a mead or a sizer, for example, you get those bourbon and smoky, oaky flavors in the mead. And I bet that would go really great with the bourbon and pecan flavors, too.
It would, yeah. Bobby mentioned earlier that I need to get apple pecan pie with vanilla from a bourbon barrel. It's like, yeah, I know. In fact, I'm drinking tonight, Melavino's Southern Apple, which is aged in either a bourbon or a whiskey barrel. He doesn't say. He just says a quote-unquote Southern barrel. You know what I mean. But this would go really good with, I would love to have this with fried pork chops. This would be perfect with fried pork chops.
Yum.
And this blackcurrant stuff would go really well with the steak I'm going to have tomorrow.
You're going to have to get another bottle of it then.
Well, I'm only drinking it one glass at a time, so, you know, it's lasting a while.
Yeah.
It's such a relief to know that I'm not the only person drinking right now.
Oh, no, we always drink during the show. It's unless one of us is sick or unable to drink.
On anti-inflammatories for freaking months.
Yeah, AJ was forbidden
or
from
in
drinking for a while.
on site.
Yeah, or you're in the middle of his workday like Hamish. So, yeah. You know, but yeah, we usually do. You know, I break open a new mead for every show and do a review on it. In fact, we never said what I was drinking. We skipped over that because I was bringing in Greg. Yeah. So yeah, just to interject that, I'm drinking Melavino Southern Apple. It's a Sizer that's aged six months in a quote-unquote Southern barrel. That's what he says on the label. It has an apple whiskey nose to it. And when you taste it, it's honey and apples with a whiskey flavor just kind of running through all of that. But it's sweet, so the whiskey kind of provides this sort of tart back end to it. And then it's got this long honey whiskey finish. It's really nice. It's a good thing I'm going up there next weekend. I'm going to have to get more of this. It's the only bottle I got, so. But this would go really good with pork. Really, really, really well with some nice pork chops. I may have to thaw out a pork loin and chop it into chops so that I can cook some up and try it with this.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. Have you had this one yet, Chrissie?
No, I haven't had that one. I've had lots of Sergio's Meads. They're always fantastic, but I haven't had that one.
Yeah, I haven't had one of his yet that I didn't love, but this one's really good. If he's got more of it, I'm going to be buying as much as I can afford to buy next weekend because this is right up there near the top for me. I know I'm not going to get any more of his pecan pie mead because that was a limited run. So that was really, really good. But I'm absolutely overwhelmed that your book is being considered for 2 of the most prestigious awards in cookbooks. That's just stunning. I'm so impressed.
Well, I'm pretty overwhelmed too. It is pretty thrilling.
Yeah. I imagined a little bit of squeeing went on your end of things too. So that's pretty cool. We'll have to put something up about that. You need to get like a label we can stick to your table at the at the conference.
I think it's the semi-finalist rounds on the James Beard. Yeah, I'll definitely get some stickers put together.
Oh, totally.
So
yeah.
2 more days until they announce that.
I'll keep all my fingers and toes crossed, man. That's awesome.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll take your email and copy the info and get it posted up for you tomorrow. I just haven't been on except to frantically get stuff ready for the show since I got back from the doctors. I got back from the doctors, I ate dinner, and then I got online, realized that I'd screwed up who was going to be on the show tonight, and had to fix it. So I had you and Becky. Becky's on next week. Becky's like emailing me going, "But Vicky, we have a date tonight. I'm not home." I'm sorry. I chalk it up to the fact that I'm buried in prep work for the conference. That's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it.
And also low on oxygen.
And also low on oxygen. Yeah, that too.
Why are you low on oxygen?
I've been having trouble breathing since end of July, and they're still trying to figure out what's going on. Nobody knows what's wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I get lightheaded and practically pass out and all kinds of fun stuff.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, I'm not amused by it, but there's not a whole lot I can do about it except just keep plugging away and try to, survive. So I'm not worried I'm trying not to worry about it too much, But yeah, it makes thinking hard sometimes because it seems like my brain is mired in mud because it's not getting enough oxygen. So.
Yeah.
But that's it is
well,
what it is.
I'm on the last couple sips of the only glass in the world of this particular pie mint.
Oh yeah, what is it?
So I have a little 1-acre Pinot Noir vineyard on my little farm here, which isn't a lot of vineyard, but it's enough to play with. So I've got Pinot Noir in a tank in the garage, and I've got a blend in just this one glass of about 30% Pinot Noir and 70% traditional mead.
Ooh, nice.
And that's what I've been sipping on. So it's still in the tank. It's not bottled yet. So sometime in the next few months, this will get bottled. And I'm still trying to figure out what the blend is going to be.
Well, when you do get that bottled and ready to go, let me know. I'd love to get a bottle.
All right, will do.
Yeah, thanks. I'm not going to be back on your coast for a little while, so we'll have to make arrangements somehow.
Well, it's a good thing I can ship.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, we'll figure something out. But I would like to get some. I haven't had any of your mead in a while. Last time I got some was when I was out there, 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a while now.
Yeah. So.
What's Hamish drinking?
I think he said he had coffee.
Yeah, he's in the middle of his work day. It's like middle of the day on Wednesday for him. Yeah. It's a downside if we have the show in the evening. If we had it in the middle of the day here, then, it'd be really early in the morning for him. And to have it be after work for him, we'd have to have it at like 1 a.m. here. So there's really no good time. It makes it hard when we want to get Europeans on the show because it's the middle of the night for all of them, Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of times we had Doug on, got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be on the show.
Yeah, well, and we had Robert on.
And Robert.
Yeah, when Rob was on, Rob stayed up till 3 a.m., and then he had to get up and go work for the government the next morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, Chrissie, thank you. And, I'll be talking to you. There's, things happening and stuff going on and all of that, and at the very least, I'll see you in a month. Well, all three of us will, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks again. As always, a pleasure to be on the show with you.
Oh, it's great having you on here.
Thanks again.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you're gonna bring to your talk. It's gonna be really interesting. Trying to type and talk at the same time. Sorry. So, but thank you. We really appreciate it. I'm excited. And so for those of you who are wondering, Chrissie is also going to be at the AMMA conference. You can get your tickets at amma.brownpapertickets.com. So that'll be really, really cool. Oh, okay, and Chrissie dropped off. Okay, so...
I'm still here.
You're still there. Oh, we lost Hamish. Okay, I saw 2 on there. I was like, wait, we lost Chrissie. No, Hamish dropped off. He said he had a hard stop, though, at 2 hours, so that's cool. All right, so, upcoming guys. We've got February 13th, which is today, but if you're towards the West Coast, Superstition Meadery, which is in Mountain Time, is having tasting and music at the Wandering Tortoise. Tomorrow, there's a mead and cheesecake pairing at Dahlia's Poorhouse. Of course, February 22nd is Defend Our Bees, which is a tasting and talk at Brother Strake Meadery about ways to increase the bee population.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat. Let me think here. We got March 13th to 15th, of course, is the AMMA Mead Conference and Trade Show. You can get your tickets at Brown Paper Tickets. AMMA.brownpapertickets.com. March 16th and 17th, the Mazer Cup International, mazercup.org. That's mazercup.org. If you want to go to the meet and greet, or to the mead mixer, which is their Friday night tasting and the largest mead tasting in the world, get your tickets. They're selling quick. March 31st is the Day of the Juice Beer Festival. And all of these are linked on the show page, so you can go and get the links and go straight to those pages. And then April 21st is the Winemaker's Shop Mead Competition, which is going to be in conjunction with, I think Brother Strake Meadery is involved with that. So it's a new comp, and again, the link is on the web page so that you can go check it out straight from the show page. Next week, we've got Teresa Dorr from Vino Shipper and Becky Starr from Starlight Meadery. I screwed up the dates on. She's really supposed to be on next week, promise. I got it right this time. And then on 2/27, which is I think our last show before the Mazer Cup, is we'll have a couple of the principals from the BJCP on to talk about what they're doing with the mead certifications. And then we're going to have Adam with Haymaker Meadery, who is going to come and talk about using oak products in your mead rather than like barrels. It's like strips and cubes and spirals and whatnot. So, on how to treat different parts of oak and things like that. So he's going to come on and talk a little bit about that. And he's also going to be speaking at the conference. So that's what we got going on, kids. Sounds
like it'll be another good show.
Yeah, I think so. It'll be fun. get 2 more, and then I'm going to do a live. Well, actually, we are going to do a live walk-around show at the Mead Mixer. I'm going to have a tablet with a microphone and a messenger bag, and we're just going to be able to walk around and stick microphones in people's faces and ask questions. So, and we're going to take turns doing this, just for a while, and see how that works out. And I'm going to do it too next weekend. I will be at the New York Fermentation Festival in Brooklyn, February 24th, and it's nycfermfest.com, I believe. But I'm going to be there. Bobby will be there. Bobby Slants will be there, and there'll be 6 meaderies there. And I'm going to be on the panel there, and I'll also be hanging with the folks that are putting it on and doing some live radio stuff. So this should be fun.
Sounds terrific.
Yeah, going to be busy. So that's what we got. And same bat time, same bat channel next week, kids. We'll see you then.
Take care, everybody.
Hi, Vicky.
All right. Thanks, Chrissie. We appreciate you coming on the show for us.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks very much for having me.
All right. Night, all.
Night.